Jewish journey of the Gospel of Mark, a very, very quick reiteration of previously, so we can make sure, because these two stories are grouped together for a purpose. We saw the authority over nature that Yeshua had over the sea last week as we concluded chapter 4 of Mark. We'll be beginning chapter 5 today. We saw that they crossed over the Sea of Galilee. Why did the disciples cross the sea? To get to the other side, of course. And they encountered a fierce gale of wind, and the waves are breaking over the, and the waves were breaking over the boat so much that the boat was already filling up. And they said as one voice, "We're going to need a bigger boat." And Jesus himself was in the stern. Not that he was stern. He wasn't stern. He was asleep on a cushion. And they woke him and said to him, "Teacher, Rabbi, do you not care that we are perishing?" Which is such a Jewish way of expressing their concern. Do you not care? We'll just sit here and drown. We'll do it silently. Don't worry about us. And got up and rebuked the wind. And he said to the sea, "Hush, be still," which, remember, in Greek, it sounds really good. But it is the Lord simply saying, "Be muzzled," to the sea. It's the same language that he uses of the demons in previous passages. Siopao, that's the Greek word. You got to do that. Siopao. So you get the pugilistic attitude behind this. It's not a nice, "Oh, hush, hush, little wind." No. The sea was calm. Immediately, the sea calmed down. And the disciples, they became very much afraid. And they said to one another, you would think, it's very counterintuitive, right? Because this guy's got power over the sea, and he made that which was making you afraid, he made it go away. But the solution was scarier than the initial problem to the disciples. They became very much afraid and said to one another, "Who then is this, that even the wind and the sea obey him?" And of course, we saw this running list that we've had from the beginning of Mark, that we've seen all the areas in which thus far Yeshua has exercised authority over. To this we will add our last letter G, we'll add nature. We're going to pick up another letter in just a moment when we meet the demoniac or demoniac. We introduced the story, and then I left you in suspense last week, but let's go over those verses. They came to the other side of the sea, into the country of the Gerasenes, the eastern area of the lake. Then he got out of the boat. When he got out of a boat, immediately, Mark's favorite word, immediately. Everything happens so quickly out here. Immediately, a man from the tombs. Like that's a normal thing. A man from the tombs. The tombs is a neighborhood bar that we like to congregate. It's a place where everybody knows your name, and they're always glad you can know. It's more like, where you check in and you don't check out. Welcome to the Hotel California, whatever. But a man from the tombs. Mark, I love his tone. I love his style. It's so matter of fact. I'm just giving you the facts. Matt, where's he living? In the tombs. So what does that make him? A man from the tombs. Man from the tombs. With an unclean spirit met him. And he had been dwelling. His dwelling was among the tombs. So let me link this to the previous story. I feel like most readers of Mark, if you're the average reader of Mark is already a believer, right? And so you read this and you see, okay, what am I to think about Jesus? How am I going to react to this? But Jesus now finds himself in a predominantly Gentile-run area. It's in one of the cities that make up the Decapolis, that are 10 Roman capitals, Decapolis. There are 10 Roman cities that are spread out on the east and west of the Sea of Galilee and downward. And they're spread out in Israel like jewels. Roman cities, Jewish people did not live in these cities. Jewish people lived in these cities, but they were a distinct minority. Right? They're predominantly Gentile. And we have certain clues within the text that demonstrate that this larger area is predominantly Gentile. We're going to encounter one of those contextual clues in a moment. We're in the eastern end of the Sea of Galilee. And so tombs in those days, you can see the picture, they were subterranean caves. And you can decorate the subterranean cave, with columns and such. It just happens to be in that area. There are a smattering that we can visit today. Many of you who have come to Israel have seen seen this region. That's one of the great things about Roman cities. Even though most of it is they're ruins, they're kind of built to last. So you actually have a place to go and see. When you came with me to Israel in 2018, one of the Roman cities that we went to see was Bet She'an, called Scythopolis in Greek, but that was one of the cities of the Decapolis. Anyway, but he'd been living in these tombs because he was demon-possessed. And he comes out to see Yeshua and say, boo. No one was able to bind him anymore, even with a chain. He's got an unclean spirit, lives in an unclean area in these tombs, these caves. No one was able to bind him anymore, even with a chain, which leads one of the lines. They used to be able to constrain him, because he was known in the larger community as demon-possessed. And because he was demon-possessed, he needed to be constrained, because he's violent to himself and to others. So they would tie him up, they would leash him up, and eventually they needed to bring in a chain, because this guy is strong. But now he's become so supercharged demonically that even a chain cannot subdue him. The demons had given this possessed man supernatural strength. He's a danger to himself. And of course, he's a danger to others. And he chose to live among the dead. I can imagine a man who enjoys his freedom, what it would be like to have been controlled by other forces, and then to be subdued by other forces, try to tie me down and shackling and leashing me. How humiliating for someone made in the Imago Dei, for someone made in God's image. And so in just a few words, Mark has painted a picture of just how horrifying this man's situation was. Because he had often been bound with shackles and chains. The chains had been torn apart by him and the shackles broken in pieces. No one was strong enough to subdue him. And constantly, night and day, he was screaming among the tombs and in the mountains and gashing himself both inside and out with stones. So he's running around during the day, running around during the night, howling at the moon, yelling and screaming, taking the sharp stones of the region, and the region is filled with sharp stones around Galilee, and harming himself. He's harmed on the inside and harmed on the outside. And seeing Jesus from a distance, he ran up and bowed down before him. That's a subservient position, any way you slice it. And shouting with a loud voice, he said, "What business do we have with each other, Jesus, Son of the Most High God? I implore you by God, do not torment me." We see that phrase a lot. What business have I to do with you? What business have we with each other, Yeshua? See the demons. They know who he is. They not only know Yeshua's name, Jesus' name, but also his not-so-secret identity as Messiah. And they address him as a euphemism of Messiah, Son of the Most High God. Most High God is a phrase that was used several times in the Hebrew Scripture, was used by Gentiles when they referred to the God of Israel, Most High God. And so the Son of Most High God has not only the understanding that he's the Messiah, but an understanding, a comprehension of Yeshua's ontological identity, his power, his authority, his position, who he really is. So what do we have to do with one another? Yeshua, Son of the Most High God, I implore you, he asks, begging, prostrate before him, bowed before him, understanding that you are great, I am less, I implore you by your Father not to torment me. I find it extraordinarily ironic to see a demon imploring Jesus by God not to torment him, who has been tormenting this poor man for an unspecified period of time. But desperate times call for desperate measures, for he had been saying to him, "Come out of the man, you unclean spirit." So the demon, hearing that, says, "Don't torment me, and don't remove me, by God." So Yeshua was asking him, "What is your name?" And he said to him, "My name is Legion, for we are many." He here, obviously, is Jesus, because the demon already knows the name of Jesus, doesn't have to ask him his name. And this is part of the exorcism formula. We saw a previous exorcism in chapter 1. Traditional way for Jewish people to exorcise a demon is to learn its name. Once you learn the name of the demon, you have power over the demon. We see this in scriptures. By what name, by what authority do you do this, right? That's what they ask Jesus. The Pharisees asking Jesus, what is the name of the demon who's giving you the authority to do this? We got back, getting back to the unforgivable, unpardonable sin. By what authority have you done these things? So as a Jewish man, Yeshua does the normal thing as a Jewish exorcist. He says, "What's your name?" And the Rolling Stones start to play behind him. No. A demon answers, hope you guessed my name. The demon answers, because when the superior asks the question of the inferior must answer. The demon says, "My name is Legion." That's not a proper name. Nobody walking around in a baby book with the name Legion. Right? Everybody knew in the ancient world what a legion was. In the Roman world, a group of soldiers numbering about 5,000 or 6,000 guys. That's the legion, right? Organized in centuries, certain number of centuries made a cohort, certain number of cohorts made a legion. 5 or 6 made a cohort, centuries of 100 guys, and then several cohorts make a legion, right? It's like saying my name is brigade, or my name is team, something that will be familiar to us, because there's multiples. Legion, again, 5,000 to 6,000 men. So we have in this one guy contained potentially 6,000, thousands of demons who have ganged up to strip this man of his humanity, to humiliate him, to make him suffer. And he began to implore him earnestly not to send me out of the country. Please don't send me out of this neighborhood. I like the region. It's got a lovely view. It's got a waterside lake view. Don't send me out of this region. We want to stay here. Little hilltop view. Don't send us to the desert. Don't send us into the abyss, our final place of torment. Now, there was a large herd of swine feeding nearby on the mountain. Or not a mountain, it's really the hilltop. I'll show you a picture in a moment. First thing you know from a large herd of swine feeding on the hilltop is that you predominantly have a Gentile region. Right? The area is predominantly populated by Gentiles because Jews don't have herds of swine. We are not big into bacon, right? As the Mishnah said, they do not rear small cattle in the land of Israel. They do not rear chickens in Jerusalem, not because they don't like chicken soup. We always love chicken soup. It's just that chickens would defile the priests because of how chickens do. They go anywhere they want. They leave droppings, and you could become defiled as a priest. We can't have chickens in Jerusalem, but we don't have cattle. We don't rear and we do not rear pigs anywhere, right, in Israel. So we know we're in Gentile territory. The demons implored him, saying, send us into the swine so that we may enter them. Which is I find a very interesting thing to request, which of course the multiple demons. So hundreds, thousands, who knows how many we have. And they see a large herd of multiple entities, these pigs, and it wouldn't be that difficult to leave the man and go annoy the pigs, to possess the pigs. So Jesus gave them permission. And coming out, the unclean spirits entered the swine, and the herd rushed down the steep bank into the sea, about 2,000 of them, and they were drowned in the sea. And just as they were running down the hill, the pig's last words were, that's all, folks, and then splash. But here's the thing. Jesus didn't send them into the pigs, the demons into the pigs, because he knew they would go berserk and go stampeding, because Jesus, contrary to Peter, is not a vegetarian, but he didn't eat pork. Okay, so so it's not that Jesus is upset at the death of pigs so much, but he knew the demon's job is to destroy the hosts that they are possessing and harm them. And they would get some kicks by going into the swine, and then all the swine getting destroyed. Now, what happens to the demons if the swine are destroyed? Well, that's not the point of the story narrative, right? Now, unlike movies where they have a little sign at the end, no animals were harmed in the making of this film. Well, in the telling of the story, animals were indeed harmed, right? But the Last Supper, Jesus partook of the Passover lamb before he became the Passover lamb. I want to hammer into you that Jesus most assuredly valued the life of a human being created in the image of God more than he did for 2,000 animals. I mean, pigs, it's the easy one, but to be sensitive to the animal lovers that we have, you know, the point of the story is not, ha ha, pigs got killed. That's not the point. The point is that one human being is worth far more than thousands of thousands of pigs. That's how Jesus sees mankind. We're not equal all of creation. Animals, humans, all on the same level, like PETA would tell us. It's not true we're not all the same importance in God's hierarchy. Jesus, for the sake of one man, 2,000 pigs die. So anyway, next time PETA starts with you are armed with this story. So they ran down this embankment. This is the traditional area, and it's one of the very few areas on the east side of the lake where it could be. This embankment where they could run down this better image with the sun shining in the right way so you can see the depth. But this is not a mountain. It's a hilltop. Okay? It's not that impressive when you actually see it in person. But you can imagine the pigs grazing on the hilltop and then running as one into the sea. This is the same area from a boat, from the sea. And you could see how they would run down and make their way down into the sea. Well, the herdsmen ran away. They reported to the city and the country. The people came to see what had happened. So the owners of the pigs, the herdsmen, they ran away. They reported to the city and the country, wherever they're going. Went to the central location to disseminate the information. Sharing all of this in the grapevine. The city, the country, far and wide. Large number of people came to see what happened. They came to Jesus and observed the man who had been demon-possessed sitting down, clothed, and in his right mind. The very man who had the legion. And they became frightened. The first thing they see is where he once had a hilltop filled with pigs. Now it's an empty hill devoid of pigs. And they saw, it tells us, they saw intently. They saw with the intent to study. They saw the man who had been demon-possessed. He's not running around like a crazy person. He's sitting down. He's not naked anymore. He's got clothes on. Where did he get clothes from? Well, probably Jesus' disciples, gave him here's a tunic, here's a sash, here's a whatever. Donated him some clothes. They saw him in his right mind. Which demonstrates to those, to be right-minded is obviously far more holy than to be left-brained. Right? That's not the point of the story, okay? Not what it's saying here. It means he's in his correct mind. He's saying the very man who had thousands of demons in him. And what happens? They become frightened, like the apostles did, like the disciples did in the boat. Not by the economic loss that they suffered from their loss of pigs. The bottom line was scary, but the man who was frightening in his own right when they're running around, which is why they want to chain him down. In shackles, he's screaming, he's cutting himself. They see him calm, dressed, no longer possessed. And their reaction, instead of breaking out in praise, is they become frightened like the disciples became frightened in the freebie story. They're fearful. And just like the disciples asked, who is this who controls the wind and the waves? So the reactions of the two people groups are what connect the stories. Right? Same reaction from the disciples. The Jewish audience and the predominantly Gentile crowd, and they see an exorcism and they become frightened. What questions are roaming around their minds? Who is this who can subdue, control that which no one else could control? Those who had seen it described to them how it had happened. to the demon-possessed man, formerly demon-possessed man, and all about the swine, all about the swine. The economics are actually the emphasis in the story here. Our whole economy is ruined thanks to this guy. Good for this one guy here who had been possessed. But what about us? What about our families? Where are the pork chops that we're going to eat for dinner? And what are their reaction? They began to implore him to leave their region. It's interesting, because the demons implored Jesus, don't take us out of the region. We want to stay. And now we have the townsfolk telling Jesus he's got to get out of Dodge. Take a hike. Take the next boat out of here. And as he was getting into the boat, the man who had been demon-possessed was imploring him that he might accompany him. And it's understandable. The man whose dignity, the man whose humanity had been restored by Jesus was imploring Yeshua that he could come along. Another instance in the story of someone imploring Yeshua. The demons implored Jesus to cast them out of, not to cast them out of the area. Townsfolk implored Jesus to leave. And now the man imploring Jesus says, let me come along with you, right? It's like a formal request, the way it reads. The formal request, let me be your disciple. Let me be the 13th disciple. I see that you don't seem to have any Gentiles in your group. And according to our DEI commission, the Affirmative Action Committee, you should have at least one representative. And he begs to come along. But Yeshua didn't let him. And he said to him, go home to your people and report to them what great things the Lord has done for you and how he had mercy on you. Why did Jesus not let him come? Was Yeshua prejudiced against Gentiles? He's demonstrated to everyone that Gentile lives matter, not just Jewish lives. Jesus told the man, I appreciate the idea, but I have a more strategic plan. Go home. Tell everyone what great things the Lord has done for you and how he had mercy on you. I'm not planning on spending a lot of time among your community. And if you go back and you represent me to your community, because I have to go to the lost sheep of the house of Israel, that's the bottom line for Yeshua. That's who he was sent to. But you're living in a Gentile community. Go back. The very fact now that you're in your right mind, that they all know you, what happened to you, they see you, the impression you're going to make, and that your story is going to be so much more powerful in your own community than if I take you with me. So go back and tell them the great things the Lord had done, and he had mercy on you. And he went away and began to proclaim in Decapolis what great things Jesus had done. Now, he's going from city to city, not just staying in his local area. He's going to the major metropolitan areas. Right? Because in those days, there were no great metropolitan newspapers, right? So you wanted the news, you had to share it yourself verbally, right? He's telling them what great things Jesus had done for them, for him. And everyone was amazed. So he actually becomes a traveling Gentile evangelist preparing the way. Not sharing the gospel. He doesn't know the gospel. Not even sharing great messianic prophecies to prepare the Gentiles for the coming Messiah or for the kingdom. He's laying the groundwork that the apostles will later reap in preparing Gentiles to understand that God is doing amazing things in this region. And he decides to work through this individual to make that news happen. The whole significance, the context is, we'll have to wait until the next decade for the apostles, book of Acts. But you got two stories together. bound together by a common reaction of the people who witnessed these events. Bound together by a spoken and an unspoken question. Who is this man? Who is this Jesus? Who is this man? So now, I want you to ask this. I want to ask this question. When was the last time that you, yes, you personally, or you corporately, either way, that you were amazed, that you were truly amazed, flummoxed, gobsmacked, whatever, however you want to express it, at what great things Yeshua has done? At what great things Yeshua has done for you? At what great things Yeshua has done for your loved ones? At the great things Yeshua has done for our congregation. You take the greatness in intellectual stride that God, because he is all-powerful, that when something great happens as an answer to prayer, that, well, of course it would, because our God is all-powerful, and therefore we just take it for granted. Don't take God for granted. Stand amazed. Open that mouth agape at his power, his wonder, at the good things he's done for us, at the mercy he has had on us. It's one of the things that we can experience together as congregation. That's why I love the praise. I love the praise today about the triple header, the three children who all got jobs. Fantastic, because it allows us to celebrate. When one of our individual families celebrate, we all celebrate. It's party. When one of our individual families hurts, we all hurt. When one of our members goes in for surgery, we're all in there together with him. We're part of a family. And because we all have individual stories to tell, and not every week, sometimes you tell a story this week and you tell a story next week, but we collectively get to see the larger picture of our amazing God and what our amazing God does for us, for our loved ones, for this congregation. You know, with all of the challenges that have accompanied our move from one building to the other, I'm so happy to be here. God did that. I didn't seek that. I didn't have the foresight to say, you know what, it would be better if we were here. It would be more strategic. It would be for us to be in the building. That wasn't in my head. It wasn't my intention. It had never entered my mind. But nonetheless, it happened. And I am grateful. I'm amazed at God's greatness. He acts before we even think of the need that we have. And that's why I'm not worried financially about what he's brought us through 13 years. This is not the first tight, pinchy, moment that we've had as a congregation. We'll have more in the future, I'm sure. But God, he always delivers. And as he continues to deliver, let us, like this man, tell that story. Don't hide your light under a bushel. Tell the story of what God has done for you. So we add to this list in closing. We add to the list what is the latest, number H, area of authority, not only a demon. What am I, just a run-of-the-mill exorcist? I don't handle just a demon. I can handle a legion of demons. And so you begin to accumulate a vast panoply of evidence regarding Yeshua's authority. And that means for those of us who are here and those of us who are watching at home, if you have not by this point been convinced to make a decision on behalf of following Yeshua, what is it that you're waiting for? This is your moment. Well, I know you might want to wait because maybe for you it's going to take I or J or K to tip the balance for you. All right. You're from Missouri, the show me state. Okay, whatever. I'll show you. Well, rather, Mark will show you, and I will point out what he's shown us. The greatness of the authority of our Lord. Let's stand and receive the Aaronic benediction.